tonight.
But I
For
think
that
we both
sweet
know what
romance.
men are like.
For the very first scene, Kubrick eventually settled on a highly unconventional cold open in space with the sun slowly rising over the moon and Earth.
What you have to start with is the wham.
Tom Hanks was 13 years old when he first saw 2001 in Oakland and had something of a religious experience.
Bum 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 The dawn of man. There's the beginning of 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Magnificent. Man, it's as though you rehearsed that.
It's imprinted in my brain.
For the next 20 minutes, we hear no dialogue at all, just 8 men grunting.
And I got mad because there was some girls and they were like laughing at the apes. They were laughing like that. Instead, shh, I shushed them because it was so important to me.
Then the black monolith suddenly appears and the apes go nuts.
That conflict over the water hole between two different packs of primitive human beings needed no explanation. And then that heaving of the first weapon that man had ever utilized in order to gain power flies up into the sky. And in a single instant, Kubrick had encapsulated the entire history of human understanding in one fell swoop. 2001 had the greatest time cut in the history of time cuts, in which the entire history of humankind is communicated in the first weapon being thrown up into a blue sky and suddenly becomes a spacecraft orbiting the Earth. When that happened, I swear to God, my head exploded.
New Year's Eve was kind of special because we were going into the year 2001, and the motion picture 2001 is a big deal with me. And it just so happened, if you're so inclined to pay attention to the stars, Venus was beautiful in the heaven. Anybody see New Year's Eve? Venus was as bright as a spotlight in the sky, just going down. But Jupiter was just coming up on the azimuth right about the same time. So I went out and looked at Jupiter, because in 2001: A Space Odyssey, you see, Jay, the astronauts are on their way to Jupiter.
Right.
So I got out and got the telescope out and looked at the 4 or 5 moons of Jupiter. There's like dozens of them, Jay, but you can only see a few of them at a time. So I looked at that, and then I went in and watched 2001: A Space Odyssey on TNT.
And you watched it again?
I've seen it so many times, I know everything.
You didn't go to a party, you didn't go nuts.
Kubrick obeyed the laws of physics in this movie. No space movie had ever done that, meaning that there was no gravity in space. And so you had the circular Ferris wheel-like space station.
And you responded to that as a kid?
I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen, because no one had ever bothered doing that before. Even Star Trek on TV, they just walked around like they were in the Navy, for crying out loud.
Yes.
You know, it's like they drank from water and, cups and stuff like that. Not since George Orwell wrote 1984 has one writer's name conjured more speculation and fascination with a year than the author of 2001: A Space Odyssey. That writer is, of course, Sir Arthur C. Clarke. He is at 83, perhaps the most influential science fiction writer
in the universe. When Sir Arthur adapted his short story, The Sentinel, for the screen with the late Stanley Kubrick, they produced a memorable film in which the artificial intelligence of a supercomputer named the HAL 9000 fired the imagination of a generation of would-be and could-be space travelers. Tonight, from his home in Colombo, Sri Lanka, in front of this famous 2001 Moonscape mural, he will present an Academy Award for screenwriting. It is my profound honor to introduce Sir Arthur C. Clarke. I was born in 1956, so I don't remember Sputnik, but I do remember when the Gemini astronauts started going up, and there was a Cold War atmosphere to it. We knew that the Russians were trying to do it, and for some reason it was important to beat the Russians. Didn't know exactly why, but the Russians were the bad guys.
And you've been fascinated by space ever since, haven't you?
Yeah. There was also great romance. I thought it was very glamorous. There was a great adventure to be had by, human beings in these spacesuits flying through. It was 250,000 miles to the moon for crying. That's a long way to go.
Houston, this is 13. We've got a center engine cut off. Go on the other 4.
Your favorite film, I hear, or one of your favorite, 2001?
Oh yeah, that was one of the great things. It was magnificent about it. And I read this before I saw the movie, was that it was 35 minutes before the first word was spoken in 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I thought, well, how is that possible?
Why did that interest you, though?
Well, because it was it was contrary to everything that I had come to understand. To me, in America, a commercial comes on every 12 minutes that tells you to do something, and television was always like talking heads of people saying things to one another. Rarely was it. I never went to the ballet. I never saw a dance. I watched TV when I was a kid. So suddenly to be given this art form in which everything was communicated by way of sound and light and color, and verbiage was taken out of it, and yet it was something so palpable that I could understand it. This was a great artistic lesson to receive when I was in junior high school. It so affected me when I was 13 years old that I've never quite been able to shake it. Likewise, there is a time cut in Castaway that tells the story of 4 years in one single image. I mean, it's a fade out, and then it's a fade up 4 years later that is not quite as long as the same sort of segue in 2001: A Space Odyssey, but that bone floating up and then it comes back down and it's a spacecraft that's orbiting the Earth. That's the kind of possibility that you have in films if you do it right.
And do you think you've been in a film as good as 2001: A Space Odyssey?
No, I don't think I've been in as watershed a motion picture as that. I think those things come along, once every 10 or 15 years. And they usually don't have me in them. Bowman and Poole do not talk to one another. They don't greet each other at breakfast. I had been in tune to space movies in which people said, I took a look at those fusion grids back in Sector 5. Looks like we're going to have some hybrids go. Oh, yeah, I want to get to that. Hey, listen, they didn't speak to one another. This was astounding. And even the cryptic conversations between the Russians and Dr. Floyd on the space station.
But this epidemic could quite easily spread to our base. We should be given all the facts, Dr. Floyd.
Yes, I know.
He repeats saying, as I've said before.
As I said, I'm not at liberty to discuss it.
I'm not at liberty to discuss it. Well, that is just, holy smokes, that just raised the hair on the back of my neck much better than a bad guy saying to James Bond, I've grown tired of this game, Mr. Bond.
Yes.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. It's a whole different sort of grown-up communication of things that were important. And then let's catch The Seven Samurai for some reason on PBS. And we'll feel like we speak Japanese because we can read the subtitles and hear the language at the same time. And then let's lose sleep the night before we see 2001: A Space Odyssey because we have this idea that's going to change forever the way we look at films. And then let's go see it 4 times in 1 year.
Tom Hanks wanted to be an astronaut, too.
Houston, we have a problem.
That's him playing astronaut Jim Lovell in the movie Apollo 13.
As you're in the suit and doing all that and putting it together and acting and all of it, is 2001 somewhere in your head?
Oh, every step of the way, every moment. The fact that Kubrick made his movie with none of the bells and whistles or computer ease that Apollo 13 did, I felt like we were almost lazy. We didn't get to do as cool a stuff as Kubrick got to do.
I mean, the art imitating life, imitating art aspects are pretty cool, like the Apollo 13 command module called Odyssey.
Jim told me that they named it Odyssey because of the movie, but then if you look at what the definition of Odyssey is, it's a voyage with many twists and turns of fate in the
Right.
which is exactly what happened to him.
Apollo 13, Houston.
I want to play some audio before things went haywire. This is the actual radio transmission from 1970 with Mission Control.
Computations back here, we show you about 55, 450, and going out rapidly now.
Well, Hal might be a little bit off.
We have a sign underneath our LEB disky that my name is Hal.
I can't imagine how that got there. Just remember, you have to be nice to Hal.
We will.
Well, there you go. Hal had entered into the lexicon, even at Nashville.
Yeah.
Yeah, they took to it because it's exactly what they were doing. It was the future that they were hoping for.
The Kubrick film, 2001
A Space Odyssey.
You claimed to have seen it 22 times in the theater.
In a theater.
In a theater.
22 times. That's like, and you can add one because they just played it on the new 4K projector at the Arrow about a year ago, and I saw it there. And I swear to God, I saw stuff I had never seen before.
Yeah.
Because the digital projection was so clean.
How great is that Arrow?
I do not have an Alexa in the house. I know people that do. I was at somebody's house for a Hanukkah dinner, as a matter of fact, and Alexa was timing their latkes in the fried oil and turned on their automatic robot vacuum at the same time.
Oh.
And I thought that was, well, that's kind of like great. But then I don't know if that's information that you'd want Alexa to be able to put into the big database there.
So
you're
you're guarding yourself from Hal, basically.
Well, I view them all as some version of Hal. What you don't want is Alexa to say to you at some point, just a moment. I've detected a fault in the deep fryer that is currently making your French fries for dinner. You don't want to have Alexa do that to you.
I can't do that, Tom.
That's right. Open the garage door, please, Alexa. Open the garage door, please, Alexa. I've got groceries and I want to get the ice cream into the freezer. I'm sorry, Elaine, I can't do that. That would be bad news. Don't trust that. It's the single motion picture that is responsible for changing my life, and I have seen it over 200 times.